Samus, did you see that bird? He was so strong and so cool. I bet he can bench weight. What's wrong with your armor? Anyways, you shouldn't go fight him. He is too powerful. Just accept your helplessness and try to survive by escaping to the surface. Also, you got a text message while you were unconscious. It's from your friend from Mira, Elma. She says she baked some cookies for you and was wondering if you wanted to have a tea party with her. I assumed you want me to inform her that you won't be able to make it, considering your current predicament. Wait, where are you going?
One of the main traditions of the Metroid series is being able to unlock multiple endings, which is probably one of the main things that really helps add some replay value to the franchise, since most of them require you to complete them under a certain condition. It's such a simple way to get me to jump back into the games, especially when they don't take forever to complete, and even forces me to think outside the box in order to figure out how to get them in the first place, which is a fun experience I recently had with Metroid Dread. Upon first completing the game, I truly thought that being able to get the completion time under 4 hours to seem almost impossible, considering how much backtracking you have to do and the difficulty in some of the boss fights. And part of me was simply wondering if I was missing something altogether. And that is when I realized that just like Zero Mission, Metroid Dread had a lot of intentional sequence breaks that can really help you save time in a couple of instances, by either helping you kill a boss much faster, or unlock some alternate routes that skip a good portion of the backtracking, or even getting some items early that will help you go faster. And thus, this is the key in order to get the best ending. It's honestly a genius idea in part of the developers, because it shows just how much they plan their level design ahead of time. Not only for these skips to be intentionally possible, but also so they could offer you another way to complete the game that in some fashion essentially gives you a fresh new playthrough. It elevates the world from just being a couple of rooms to fully feel like an open sandbox for you to use Samus's abilities in creative ways, which is one of the main reasons I consider this to be one of the best in the series. So before I break down one of the routes I've been using to comfortably get the best ending, I want to mention a few disclaimers. First, this isn't a speedrunning guide, but more or less an easy way for almost any casual player that is willing to have their abilities tested to get all the endings in a comfortable fashion. Second, this route is by no means optimal, and it sure has a couple of places where it can be improved. But it's just what I've been personally using since it has a couple of fun moments thanks to sequence breaking. Third, and this is more of a pointer, but the timer that dictates your final runtime is only taking into account the times that you're able to control Samus. This means that anytime you're watching a cutscene, talking with Adam, looking at the map, or having the system on the home menu won't count towards your completion time. So feel free to take a breather whenever you need it. And lastly, although this is the more casual way of beating the game fast enough, you'll still be required to get comfortable with a couple of techniques in order to solve some puzzles to collect the items earlier than intended, such as wall jumping, bomb hopping, and most importantly, shine sparking. So without further ado, let's get to the actual meat of this video.
Just in time.
So to start off, I think it goes without saying that you may want to do this on a completed save file, since you can skip all the cutscenes in the game and thus make this run feel a little bit smoother. Just keep in mind that sadly there is no way of skipping the intro prologue as far as I know. But the first portion of this run is rather straightforward, since all you have to do is play the game normally up to the point where you collect the Varia suit and return to Cataris. From here, the game more or less leads you to go fight Kraid, but instead we're going to make our way back to Dairen and go to this room near the purple teleporter, where at the bottom you can destroy these fake blocks to reveal the path to the lower heat areas, and make your way to this save room just to be safe. Ultimately, you want to go to this room with the energy part and shoot down this panel to reveal yet another hidden section, and head through the door to access the main area for our first sequence break. Normally, you expect to need something like the gravity suit or space jump to make your way through this room, but you can actually perform a wall jump over here to access this rail. The main trick is to jump after coming out of the slide in order to wall jump and then get into the tunnel. But what I personally like to do in order to get the timing is to mash the button once Samus is sliding under the gap, so she can jump almost immediately after she comes out. Later in the same room, you'll need to perform another jump doing more or less the same tactic as before, but it's a bit simpler since this slide can help you get back up in case you missed the timing. But once you complete it, you will find an elevator which we will use to get back to Arteria. This will put you right above the room with the grapple beam, and once you collect it, make your way back to Dayren, and go back to the save room we accessed earlier to then head and collect the bombs. While you don't need the grapple beam in order to collect bombs early, I like to use this method to get the power up earlier since it will save us some time later on, and you can get into the bomb room a bit faster with it. Now with these items, it's time to make your way back to Kraid and go through his first phase as fast as you can, because it's on the second phase where you get to see the reason we wanted to get bombs before this fight. By destroying this panel below, you'll discover a cannon that will make it able for you to attack Kraid from the inside, and thus defeating him much faster than normal. Now, with the diffusion beam in our hands, we will continue to play the game normally up to the point where you collect the pulse radar in Gavaran. Just keep in mind that when you go to Barinia to get the flash shift, you can now destroy the grapple beam blocks on your way, which will help you skip a lot of the lower portions of the area and thus help you collect this item much faster. Once you collect the pulse radar, it's time for another round of sequence breaking, but this time you can collect more power-ups out of order. Two of which in fact are kinda optional, those being the cross bombs and the space jump, but I recommend getting these as you get used to the routes. My personal recommendation is going for cross bombs first, since you are already near them and they can come in handy when collecting some items later on. So to access this boss, you can charge your speed booster in this room, jump into the small gap, drop a bomb, and then immediately do a shine spark to the right to bypass the fake blocks. Once below, you can charge another one here and head up to reach the room of the boss Golsuna. Though while it doesn't have a quick kill like Kraid, you can actually shine spark it to at least reduce half of its health in one go, thus speeding up the fight, but it's not necessary, so don't feel pressured into doing this. From here, you want to make your way back to the room with the energy recharge so we can go and collect the gravity suits. So once in this room, where we did the skip for cross bombs, charge your speed booster in the opposite direction, then drop down into the water and perform another horizontal shine spark to reach the green teleporter. Just keep in mind that once you go down into this section, you won't be able to leave, so make sure to decide if you want to collect the cross bombs beforehand. On the other side of this teleporter, simply bomb this block over here and head your way to the bottom to find this room with another energy part. And here is probably the hardest trick in the entire run, since you have to charge your speed booster in this small space and then hold it to perform a series of shine sparks in a couple of rooms ahead. This puzzle may seem a little hard at first, but it's all about being able to use the inclines to keep your momentum and dash under any obstacles. A trick to note here is that if you press Y and B at the same time, you can initiate your shine spark in mid-air, and thus be able to angle it towards the hill and go back into boosting. But after this sequence of speed boost, you'll find yourself in this room, and you want to reach the higher ledge to use your grapple beam to destroy the background scenery and open a path. Then just head down below through the door on your left to collect the gravity suit, and after that, shine spark your way up here to reach an elevator to loop back to frozen Arteria. Our main objective here is to collect the Screwattack, which normally would have us melting the ice by fighting Experiment C57. However, if you make your way to this room, near the long hallway with the lava in the background, we can perform a diagonal shine spark while in Morph Ball to go up this ramp and into the next room. You can use this tile on the floor to know if you're in the correct position, but don't worry if you fail a few times since it isn't much of a time loss to begin with. Just keep in mind that to reach this location, you will have to make your way up this area with either your cross bombs or a Shine Spark charged in the nearby enemy zone. Going back to the room after the Ball Spark, you want to head into this area with a missile tank and use your bombs to reveal a hidden path that leads into the enemy zone. And then make your way to over here in the map, which is the room next to the one with these two large enemies. This wall over here contains a hidden bomb block, which you can spot with a different texture, which will lead you straight into the red teleporter, and you can continue forward by breaking these blocks to the left. After that, you want to make your way up through this roof, that while you can get there with a well-timed wall jump, you can also just use the cross bombs like this to reach this ledge with ease, which is one of the reasons I recommended collecting the power-up earlier. Then continue going left until you have to drop down this series of inclines and get ready to jump into this platform on the left. From here, just continue forward until you collect the Screwattack, and then make your way back to Cataris to fight Experiment C57. Now while this boss may seem tricky, it fortunately also has a quick kill just like Kraid. What you want to do is to wait for the moment it's creating a wind current, for you to charge your speed boost and then perform a Shine Spark onto its head in order to immediately finish the fight. The trick to keep in mind here is that you can take a couple of hits after you've charged your speed booster. So make sure to do so towards the end of his attack, when he stops shooting his projectiles on the floor for a moment. From here, you want to make your way to this area on the map, near the entrance to Kraid with the weird statue, and go into this hole to find the orange teleporter, which will take us back to Gavaran, and then head into Ferenia to collect 2 more power-ups in any order that you prefer. You can either make your way down here to destroy another set of secret blocks using the cross bombs, and then go up with some well-timed wall jumps in order to collect the space jump, since it's near the entrance of the area. Or alternatively, you can come back once you have storm missiles and enter the item room the normal way, which won't take too much time since thanks to the Screwattack, it'll be extremely easy to defeat SQ by just jumping on it. And here is where the sequence breaking ends, since all you have to do now is destroy the purple enemy and head to Hanubia to fight the red one, and ultimately make your way to Iterash to fight the final battle. And hopefully with some practice, you'll be able to get those best endings in no time. Just remember that you have to reach the surface through Gavaran, since the access with Ferenia will have a grapple block that we can't destroy. But fortunately, it's not a long trip to begin with. The reason I mentioned earlier that the space jump and cross bombs may be optional to beat the game is because you can still reach Ravenbeak with just using a Shine Spark. However, keep in mind that the second phase of his fight may be a bit tricky to dodge, and with well-timed wall jumps, you can skip the cross bombs altogether. The logic as to why I considered this a viable route for casuals was because once I collected the wave beam, I still had an hour or so left to finish the game, which is more than enough to go through Hanubia, battle the Chozo, and complete the final escape sequence. I also proposed this route to a couple of my friends, and they all managed to get similar times when trying out this route, so it seems to consistently work for players with different skill levels. Now for a few final pointers to keep in mind as you make your way through the game. Remember, don't feel discouraged if you don't get these tricks on your first go. And if at some point you feel like you wanted to have a do-over, remember you can easily reload your save file when using the minus button, or even go back to your last major checkpoint. Also, make sure to collect any additional power-ups you deem necessary, but do make sure they are on your way to make progress. When doing this, I was able to come across enough expansions to make the route a little bit comfortable. But if you have trouble with the fight against Ravenbeak, then do a couple of test runs on another save file so you can get more comfortable with his patterns. And remember to destroy some of his attacks in order to regain health and ammunition. If you want to be extra flashy or feel like a pro, remember you can Shine Spark a lot of the enemies in this game, which will significantly reduce their health. And trust me when I say this, it's a lot of fun to pull off. And lastly, remember to save every once in a while in case you feel like you wasted too much time or you decided to take a break. But most importantly, remember to have fun with this. While normally getting the best ending in other games will reward you with a chance to look at Samus without her armor, Metroid Dread takes a different approach by instead having a set of images that commemorate the previous titles that form part of the classic timeline. And before you ask, Yes, even other M gets acknowledged here, just like it did with some of Dread's power-ups. Another difference from the older games is that if you unlock one of the faster endings, then the game will automatically give you the other ones. So you don't have to waste time by having Samus sit next to the final boss room for some hours just to get the slower ending. So if you try to set your sights into trying to get a completion time that's under the 4-hour mark, you will unlock all 3 endings for the difficulty you chose in one go. Also, I forgot to mention that yes, there is indeed a secret 7th image you can unlock once you collect all the other endings. That while it's nothing mind-blowing or out of the ordinary, it's still a cool detail nonetheless. And before you ask, no, it's not any type of foreshadow or cliffhanger to any future games, but it's still a neat detail that I don't want to ruin. I guess that the main thing that really makes me love this game is the fact that these sequence breaks are possible and thought out by the developers to begin with. That made me basically re-experience the entire game in a completely different way to find out its secrets that made it feel like if I was going through it for the very first time. And considering the possibilities of other routes and orders to collect the items really makes me feel excited to see what new things we can discover next, which adds yet more replay value to this already fantastic game, which will have me hooked for years on end.
Hit me up once we're back in the city.